So Stan, one of the big issues or controversies that has been levied at the film by some Christians is that it's somehow Jewish Gnosticism, and then the snake skin, like what is that about? That's kind of tied in with this whole accusation that it's a Gnostic film. So do you have any comments about any of that? How do you read the snake skin? Is the film Gnostic?
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm not a theologian,
yeah,
but I understand enough about this that I think I can give a decent answer to it. Gnosticism, and there's like 13 different varieties of Gnosticism if you go back and look in the New Testament and the Old Testament, and it's essentially the concept that materialism is bad and spirituality is good.
Right.
And so some of the critics in trying to explain Gnosticism, and I don't think this is a really good explanation of Gnosticism, say, well, there's a good God and there's a bad God, but they're both not the God of Yahweh that we celebrate and that we worship. And so one critic said that the snake was the bad Gnostic God, and that whenever the snake is involved, we're listening to the snake god, or we're listening to the bad Gnostic God who wants to destroy mankind. And there's obviously a sense of that even within Christian thought, because the snake represents evil, right? The snake tempted evil. But one of the interesting things, if you read what Aronofsky says, and I did not get the snake skin symbolism and the glowing and all that. I did not get that at first. I had to read Aronofsky's interviews.
Yeah,
and he
that
comes
was one
up
of the
with
weirder parts of the movie.
One of the weirder parts I didn't get, and I could definitely see why people say, oh, I don't like that. But when you understand Aronofsky's take on it, and all their reading of the Midrash and all the other extra biblical stuff, they saw some interpretations where the skin, or remember when it says in the Bible that God made coverings for Adam and Eve after their sin. And one of the Midrash, evidently, stories suggests that, well, the skin was the skin of a snake. We think of it as a lion or an animal or something with fur. I mean, that's what you see in paintings. But he says it was the skin of the snake. I said, well, that's interesting. But then he goes further and says, what we try to convey, and this is Aronofsky and Ari Handel saying this, what we try to convey is that, and you see this in the animation of the snake in the movie, is that you first see the snake kind of coming at the camera, and if you look closely, the skin is glowing. And then the front of that skin breaks open, and out of it comes a dark black snake. And so the idea is that the skin that comes off the snake when it sheds, it's shedding its holiness. It's shedding the glory of God.
Its original goodness that it was
created. Its original goodness.
Yeah.
And so that snake skin then now becomes a blessing. And so, you know, Lamech puts it around Noah's arm and tries to at the end, and Tubal-Cain steals it, and it comes back to Noah, so he puts it on, was it Shem's arm at the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Shem's arm. It says, the blessing is now to you. And the snake skin on Shem's arm glows, reminding us of the original glory back in the garden. So the Gnosticism thing, I just do not see any real evidence of Gnosticism. For instance, Gnosticism does not celebrate sexual union. So we've got a celebration of having babies in this movie. Gnosticism does not celebrate materialism. It celebrates, so for instance, one of the things that say, critics said that was Gnostic was when the watchers sacrifice their lives and they're redeemed and they appear to go to heaven, which is contrary to traditional Christian thought that the fallen angels can be redeemed at all. But nonetheless, we see this very Christian concept that even the worst of us can be redeemed and go to heaven. They suddenly are glowing with light, like we see in the animation of Adam and Eve in the garden. Well, that whole concept of light, they say, is Gnostic because that represents the spiritual, and they're leaving the earthly stuff behind.
Disembodied, ethereal light.
Ethereal light. But of course, light is a very big metaphor in Christendom. And not only that, but we have Moses coming down out of Sinai, and his face is glowing. We can't look at it. We got the transfiguration of Christ. Glowing. And then we have all these wonderful Christian songs, wonderful liturgical hymns that talk about the light. We are moving from the darkness into light. And then you have this little light of
Right.
mine,
Jesus
I'm going to let it
himself
shine.
said, "I am the light of the world."
I'm the light of the world, right.
We are, as the church, we are the light,
Yeah.
carrying on that light.
So I don't buy that symbolism that they say was Gnostic, but the movie celebrates life. I mean, you talk to me about the New Eden. What does the ark represent?
Yeah.
It represents what?
Yeah, it's a kind of take two on the original intent of Eden, which is to extend the flourishing of the garden outward and to expand, this perfect Eden outward into the darkness. And I think throughout the Bible, you see kind of that original charge to Adam to kind of tend the garden in a flourishing way and to extend the beauty and the order of creation outward. After the fall, that task is lost, but then God gives Noah the task, and the ark is kind of a recapitulation of Eden. And even the way that the film, there's like a seed that I think it's inferred that it's a seed from the original garden, that then out of that seed, this mini Eden kind of just miraculously comes out, and then the trees of that mini Eden become the wood that is then used to build the ark. So literally, the ark is made out of the seed of Eden. So he makes the connection to Eden very deliberate. And even I thought it was interesting, like within Eden, there's a tempter, right? There's a scene of temptation with Eve being tempted, and that happens in Aronofsky's Eden as well, with Ham kind of being tempted,
inside the ark
by Tubal-Cain's character, kind of playing at the same idea, like better than God, like you're a human, like own your humanity.
Yeah, it's like Tubal-Cain's the serpent, the dark serpent.
He's the serpent in this character, and there's even kind of a kind of that moment of Cain and Abel with the rock that the movie kind of plays over and over. You see that when at the end, when Ham kills the Tubal-Cain villain in the same way. So
right. I didn't see that. That's good.
But yeah, I think the idea with the ark being in New Eden is this idea that creation is worth saving, and the flourishing of the garden is something that God cares about. And Romans 8 talks about all of creation groans for restoration, and that is something that Noah is charged with, repopulate the earth, both with more humans and with a flourishing animal and ecological system as well. So,
and right at the end of the movie, where do we go back to? I mean, one of the last images in the film is a recreation of the very essence of what it means to be material, dirt.
Right.
Remember, Namath, if I'm saying her name right, Noah's wife, is tending a garden, and Noah comes back from his drunken state, and he joins her at the garden that she's building. It's a brand new garden, and their hands join in the dirt.
Yeah, I love that.
In the dirt. I mean, and the whole connotation of that in Aronofsky's film is this is good.
Right.
So it's not Gnostic at all.
Yeah.
It's very redemptive, and I loved it.
Yep.